The AFL is expanding, and with Tasmania already locked in as the 19th team, where will the 20th team be? In today's video we're going to be having a look at my suggestions for the 20th team in the AFL. We're going to be looking at 5 different suggestions and grading them on 4 different criteria: market, stadium, history and probability. These will be ranked out of 10. So without further ado, let's get into it. Starting off, we've got quite a historical team in Norwood, which were established 146 years ago and have won over 30 SANFL premierships. They are one of 2 traditional SA footy juggernauts, alongside Port Adelaide, which have already been admitted into the AFL. The club boasts an AFL standard ground in Norwood Oval, hosting matches in Gav-Round, but lacks in terms of capacity and might require to only play smaller games at the venue and have bigger matches at the Adelaide Oval, similar to what Geelong do with GMHB Stadium and the MCG. The club has a decent fan base and would potentially steal members from Adelaide and Port Adelaide football clubs if accepted into the league. Let's move on to the ratings then. For market, I'm giving it a 6.5 out of 10, as it is a very football-centred state, but loses out on some points due to the fact that there are already 2 teams in the city. For stadium, I've decided on 9 out of 10, as they have 2 stadiums available to them in the Adelaide Oval and Norwood Oval. Norwood Oval could be used for small matches, like I said earlier, as its location doesn't allow enough space to expand without destroying nearby buildings. For history, I think it's a quite obvious 10 out of 10. 146 years, 31 premierships, it goes without saying. One of the more historic clubs in Australia. I would say for the probability of this one happening is about a 6, due to the fact that the club CEO has came out and said that they are not bidding for the AFL licence just yet. So overall, Norwood is sitting at a 31.5 out of 40. Solid start. Moving on then, we've got another strong candidate in a team from the capital, Canberra. Footy in the ACT has been played since at least 1911, and up until the 80s were the predominant sport in the territory. The 80s were significant, as that's when the NRL team, the Canberra Raiders, were established there, and since then Aussie rules has taken a hit in terms of popularity, with it now being considered a minor sport. But as of recently, with the Giants playing 3 games a year there, the sport has begun to pick up again. So is it time for a team, or did that ship sail 40 years ago? Well, let's have a look at our ratings. For market, I'm giving it a 5.5 out of 10, as it only has a small population compared to other markets we are looking at in today's video. Onto the stadium. Now I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10, as Marnock Oval is a nice traditional ground with a decent capacity of 16k, however could use a little upgrade, with new grandstands here and here, boosting the capacity to 25,000. That would make it a decent candidate for not only an AFL team, but potentially a BBL team too. For history, I'm also going to give it a 5 out of 10, as my suggestion would be to create a new team rather than select one from the AFL Canberra League. But there is a history of over 100 years of footy in Canberra, so I think the 5 suits them. And finally, moving on to probability. Now, I really think this could be a front runner to get the 20th licence, and if not, I think it's only a matter of time before the Giants pack up and relocate to the capital anyways. So I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. That makes it a respectable total of 26 points out of 40. Moving from territory to territory now, next up is the NT, and with the highest rate of participation and most players per capita, I think he could also be a strong candidate, but then again I feel like I'm saying that about all of them. Football has been played in the NT for at least 110 years, but has grown to be the most popular sport in the territory. As I mentioned earlier, they have the highest rate of participation, with over 18% of the population playing Aussie rules. Crazy. In comparison, Victoria only has 4.3%. Anyway, let's get into the ratings. For market, I would easily give a 10, given how footy mad they are in the NT, but given the whole territory has just a population of 240,000, I'm going to give it a 7.5. For stadium, it's more difficult. With only 2 major stadiums, TIO Stadium with a capacity of 12,000 and TIO Traeger Park with just 7,000, I think the smart thing to do would be to expand TIO Stadium to around 25 to 30,000 capacity, and have smaller games held at Traeger Park. I'm going to give it a 5 due to a current lack of facilities, but I acknowledge that some can be built. In terms of history, I'm giving it a 5 again, as the game has been played there for years, but again, this would create a new team much like Canberra, so not really any history there. Moving on to probability, I'm going to give it a 6.5, as I could see the NT getting a team, but the lack of population and facilities really holds it back. This all adds up to a total of 24 points. Up next we move west, with not west but East Perth, my personal selection as the proposed WA third team. There's probably a case to be made for almost all teams in their waffle, but I feel East Perth has its own identity, as it doesn't share a nickname or colour palette with any existing AFL clubs. Football in WA is massive, with Optus Stadium being nearly full almost every home game, despite the disappointing on-field results of both their teams. As a result, I'm giving the market a solid 8.5 out of 10. Now, I would have given higher if it weren't for the fact that there are already 2 AFL teams in WA, much like in SA. Moving on to the stadium, and I'm giving it a 10. Optus Stadium is absolutely magnificent, and it could easily host a third team. Plus, they could even play small games at their current home of Leederville Oval, with a capacity of 18,000. Moving to history, and they really are quite a historic club, with over 120 years of history and 17 premierships to their name, netting them 9 points in this ranking. Finally, on to probability. I think East Perth or another WA team is going to get put in as the 20th team, in my opinion, so I'm giving it a 7.5 out of 10. East Perth has netted quite an impressive 35 out of 40 and are so far the leaders of this video, but will this last team top them? Well, for that, I think it's quite a long journey. Moving a long way away now for this final team, I've got New Zealand, where Aussie rules has been played since at least the 1860s, but after which most clubs switched to the rugby football rules and the game became obsolete. But in the last half century or so, the game has been growing steadily and is a massive landfill of potential AFL footballers, with notable St Kilda player Rowan Marshall and AFLW player Jesse already being from New Zealand. Yes, I know there's more. I really just want to feature St Kilda in this video in some way. But let's get into the ratings. For market, I've gone 2.5, the worst in this video and for obvious reasons. AFL is a minor sport in New Zealand, but I believe a team will incite growth in the sport over there. And for stadium, it's the complete opposite. Cricket is big over there, and as a result, there is a wealth of oval venues for use in winter all over the country. I've chosen Sky Stadium in Wellington as the main stadium, as it's previously held AFL games between 2013 and 2015, but other stadiums such as McLean Park and Hagley Oval could be in the rotation as well. As a result, these grounds, I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. For history, I'm going with a 4 because yes, it was played as early as the 1860s, but since then there hasn't been much going on. Moving on to be the last rating of this video, we have probability, which I've gone 3.5, as let's be honest, New Zealand isn't getting a team. Not at least before we start looking at 22nd and 24th teams, in which case maybe they'll get one. And that gives them the lowest score of this video of 20 out of 40. Now let's look at the final scores. Coming in last, unsurprisingly, is New Zealand. One I only really put in the video to make it 5 teams, which sound nicer than 4 because the more the merrier, I guess. Second last is the NT. Now I really think they should be higher if it weren't for the market and lack of facilities, but I think that they are a really important aspect, and an aspect they don't do their best in. Third last, you could have probably guessed, is Canberra. Falling again short in the market department, they just don't have enough people to justify being any higher in that ranking. And second, we've got Norwood, who probably would have won this if it wasn't for the points that they lost due to their CEO saying they weren't ready to enter the league yet. But it was close in the end between them and eventual winners East Perth. East Perth were just excellent in almost every category and may have even got a better score if it wasn't for the 2 teams already in WA. And that's who my personal favourite is to join the AFL next. I've looked at those rankings. So that ends today's video, and I've hoped you've enjoyed it as much as I've enjoyed making it. And if you did enjoy, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it really helps it to grow.